Hey everyone, it's Ivan, kitbadger.com, continuing that journey on firearms ownership, and today we can talk about how to prepare for a successful trip to the range. Our time is valuable. To that end, we want to make sure that when we go to the range, we make the best use of that time. There's already some sort of time element in us just getting there, regardless how close it is. And then on top of that, we want to make sure we have everything with us already for a successful trip to the range. To that end, firearms. What firearms are we going to bring? Keep in mind that depending on how much time you have, we might want to keep it relatively concise. You do not need to bring all of your guns to the range every time you go, but you definitely want to make sure that whatever guns you intended on bringing, you actually bring. So how do we transport them? Don't really want to walk around with a pistol not in some sort of case. And to the end of having it in a case, ideally, probably something hard-sided, or again, going back to the idea of a holster, at least hard enough sided to where you can't manipulate the trigger through it. You don't want to throw it in like a Crown Royal bag. You know what I mean? So to that end, maybe you have a case like this. It's lockable if you need to lock it. Waterproof, that's important, and we can have pistol in there, magazines, whatever it may be, or if you have some sort of just soft-sided case, something like this. Part of it is transportation. So if we're going to a indoor range or public range, anything like that, usually frowned upon walking into a range with a firearm that is not either slung or at least in some sort of bag. To the end of rifle cases, all kinds. This one's made by Sneaky Bags. Doesn't really look like a rifle case. Personally, for me, does it matter? I don't really care that someone sees like, oh, he has a rifle case, so much as it's just what I have in the rifle case. So you could see this and then be like, oh, he probably has, I don't know, maybe a little bolt action 22, which I do have, and sometimes I may have in this case. Or I might have something else. But it's one of those where I would just assume whatever I have in there, just not be like, hey, this is what I have in there. So whatever weapons we decide to bring to the range, whatever firearms, we need to make sure we have some sort of case for them with respect to that transportation portion, because don't really want to walk through public range, parking lot, whatever it is, with our pistol down at our side, high gun, anything like that. So figure out some sort of case to transport your weapon. Along with whatever rifle or pistol we choose to bring to the range, we need to make sure we bring appropriate magazines. So if you're going to go shoot rifle, we want to make sure we bring our rifle magazines, and if we shoot pistol, we want to make sure we bring our pistol magazines. To that end, if it is maybe the first time you're going to the range, ideally bring kind of all of your magazines so that as you work through whatever plan you have for the range, you can end up shooting all your different magazines, at which point you can then find out if there are any issues. While a lot of magazines are really well made these days, you will have some that occasionally some of the tolerances are out and maybe something will stick, it won't drop free, maybe the feed lips might be a little bent, you'll end up with malfunctions, stuff along those lines. And bringing different magazines to the range gives you the opportunity to test them, and if they are marked, also gives you the opportunity to find out which ones continually cause problems, at which point you can get rid of them or get them fixed if that's a thing. Honestly, they're consumable. A lot easier to just get rid of bad magazines, pick up new ones, but bring the magazines you are going to shoot for your respective rifle or pistol. In the video I posted on safe weapon storage, touched briefly on holsters as well as slings. They're incredibly important if you are somewhere outside of just an indoor range. Usually at an indoor range, your firearm is right in front of you on a bench and pretty much stays there unless you're firing it or you're putting it away. To that end though, if you are not at a range setup like that, slings, holsters are very important, because if the pistol or rifle is not in your hand, it can either just remain slung in a safe direction or holstered, which is pretty much the safest way to carry that pistol. Same stands true for ammunition. What do I mean? Well, Rather than having magazines just shoved in your pockets, ideally you have somewhere to carry them. To that end, a lot of different options out there. Some are very specific to a magazine, such as Kydex magazine pouches, where it will fit just that magazine for that pistol. Then you'll have other things that are relatively universal. By way of example, this right here is a in the waistband magazine pouch by Snake Eater Tactical. It'll hold all kinds of magazines, pretty much any magazine, honestly. And if you are having your pistol for self-defense, it makes sense that you have an efficient way to carry a spare magazine. Definitely an option. Another one is Neomag. This little guy right here clips into your pocket, has a rare earth magnet on it, so that while this sits in your pocket, you can go ahead and put your spare magazine in there, keeps it in place. Again, just different options, but whatever you end up with, we want some way to carry spare ammunition on our person if we're outside of a indoor range where chances are your magazines and your firearm are just going to be on a bench right in front of you. Which brings us to ammunition. How much ammo do we need? All of the ammo? No, we need a finite amount for whatever task we're looking to accomplish at the range, whatever plan we have. By way of example, if I'm going to shoot pistol, I might bring a box of ammunition for my pistol. This right here happens to be Sig Sauer's 365 ammo. It's made for their 365 as well as any kind of subcompact 9mm. In that, not quite as snappy as some ammunition like full power loads. So I would bring that. We also have the opportunity at the range to try different ammunition. So if you are carrying your pistol or rifle for that matter and you have defensive loads in it, we want to make sure they function. Or this right here. This is some of the G9 Woodsman bullets. It's made for penetrating large things like moose, bear, things along those lines. So if I am going to carry this into the backcountry as a defensive load out in the backcountry, I want to make sure it functions. Lots of times, some of your specialty ammunition, defensive loads, whether it's for personal defense or backcountry stuff, the bullet design sometimes can get kind of crazy compared to just round nose training ammunition and doesn't always function in all pistols. Sometimes it'll get hung up on feed ramps or you'll run into issues with magazines. So we want to make sure we test whatever ammunition we're going to use in our pistol for any type of defensive use, something along those lines. We want to go ahead and test it for function in our pistol or rifle respectively. So to that end, as we go to the range, bring whatever type of ammo you intend to use for defensive use and test it through the magazines you will also be using so that we can figure out if there's any issues whatsoever before we potentially actually need that to defend our lives. We have our firearms, we have our appropriate magazines as well as ammunition for said firearms. Here's what one of the most important things that we need when going to the range: a plan. What are we looking to accomplish there? Do we want to go work on some really basic fundamentals, some sort of mechanics? Do we want to work on kind of our marksmanship, like accuracy stuff? There's a lot that we can do there. And so having a finite amount of ammunition, say 50 rounds, we can come up with some sort of plan. Hey, I want to go there and I want to start out at 3 yards. I want to shoot at a 3-inch circle, and I want to try and get all 5 rounds into that 3-inch circle. I'm going to then conduct a reload with another magazine of 5 rounds, and I want to try and get another 5 rounds into another 3-inch circle. Maybe at that point, I'm going to move back to 7 yards. Maybe after that, I'm going to move back to 10 or 15, whatever it may be. But we want to have a very structured plan so that when we go to the range, we get the most out of that experience. And as you spend more time going to the range, you will realize things that you need to work on. And we all need to come back to certain things, whether it's just those fundamentals with respect to marksmanship or different manipulations. And there are a ton of different drills, things along those lines. Sky's the limit when it comes to that, but when we go, we need to have a plan. What about all of the other things we need for a successful trip to the range? Well, on the one hand, there is a range bag, which can literally be anything. I've taken Trader Joe's like grocery bags, and you can use pretty much anything. This right here is one of the bags by Prometheus Design Works. It's handy, throw stuff in it, it's robust, it doesn't break, different pockets, throw different things in, works great. This right here is a repurposed laptop bag. Thing does amazing. I think got it at a thrift store, something along those lines. Same thing, different pouches, compartmentalized, can put all kinds of stuff in here. So what are some other things we want to make sure we have though? One is targets, which in part can be dependent on going back to going to the range with a plan. You want to have a plan what you're going to do. To that end, make sure you have targets that support that. By way of example, when I take targets to the range, have one of these little, I don't know, like holders for paperwork, which I don't really do paperwork, but I do have targets in here. And I will have all kinds of stuff. There's a lot of great resources for free targets that you can print off, and I will print off different targets for different things. So by way of example, these right here are by LaRue, and they are 1/2-inch grids used for precision. So if I'm going to test my rifle, go see what kind of groups I get, I will print these out. I will also print them out on cardstock, and they're way more durable than just regular printer paper. Also, depending on what I'm going to do, maybe I will use some of my KBATs, Kit Badger Anatomy targets. These are a free PDF. You can download them, print them out yourself, or you can buy target pads. They're kind of nice because they're basically waterproof, printed front and back, thoracic cavity as well as head. But figure out whatever you're going to use for said range plan and make sure you have the appropriate targets for it. Other things that you will want in there, depending on where you're going, i.e. indoor range or outdoor range, is, and don't skimp on this, get a good stapler. One that is very easy to refill staples and one that works. So many times this is the bane of range trips. Forget the stapler, forget staples, it's broken, it doesn't work because you got the cheapest one you could find. Get a good one and it will always work. To that end also, go big, get lots and lots of staples. Don't be afraid to use these. It's way more efficient to use a lot of staples and be like, oh, you know what? I probably only need one staple to hold this piece of paper up. Then it blows off and now you just wasted 5 minutes trying to go down range, waiting for the range to get called cold so you can go post up another target. Not worth it. Other little things you will want, Sharpies, like this guy or one of these, so you can mark your targets, super valuable. Make sure you have some in there. Other little things too is guns don't like to be dry, so some sort of lubricant, whatever you want to use, but make sure you have some gun oil in there, some lubricant for it. Other kind of little niceties, depending on where you are in your journey, eventually a really good investment is going to be some sort of shot timer. The way this works is you can set it up for a random delay or it'll go on command. Like you press the button and it'll beep, or as I mentioned, delay, press the button anywhere between 2.5 and 4 seconds and it'll beep. And it will record the time. So every time you shoot, it basically records that sound, breaks it down 0.7 seconds, 1.43 seconds, whatever it may be. And this will keep you very honest because you'll be like, oh man, I was really fast right there. Maybe you were, maybe you weren't, but this will tell the truth. Other things we may want to are tools. A lot of range trips have been ruined because something happened, whatever it is. And have tools for kind of whatever you're using. This right here is one of the Fix-It Sticks sets, and it has all kinds of different drivers, different torque limiters, this T-handle, and it'll pretty much allow you to tighten, loosen, take apart, most anything that you need. Stuff like that is really handy, and honestly, even if not for you, for someone else you run into at the range, because having something come loose, it can ruin the whole trip, and it's definitely a bummer. Another thing, especially if you're shooting rifles, same with pistols though too, is some sort of like cleaning rods. Not necessarily that you're gonna end up cleaning your rifle out there at the range. I don't usually, but some sort of cleaning rods. These are also made by Fix-It Sticks, and you can actually attach all these together, make a really long cleaning rod. Occasionally what can happen is you'll end up with a case stuck inside the chamber. For whatever reason, it didn't get extracted, maybe your extractor broke, who knows what. I've also seen brass cases, basically the rim, the cartridge gets ripped off, so it can't get extracted. At which point, put together some cleaning rods, punch it out. You can still continue with your range day rather than just get stuck right there and have to pack up and go home. Well, this may not apply if you're going to an indoor range. If you're going to an outdoor range where you need to set up target stands, at some point it is worth investing in a good target stand. This right here is part of a whole setup by TA Targets, and this stand is awesome. Really heavy duty, and with that, you'll end up with whatever uprights you have, like these guys right here. And this has a spot for both uprights, like 2x1 or 1x2s, as well as 2x4 if you're gonna shoot steel. But it allows you to throw your uprights in there, then whatever cardboard you're gonna use. Right here is a IPSC cardboard. Once you take this and get this stapled up using mini staples, even if it is really windy, this is not gonna blow over. It may end up ripping the cardboard off of these 1x2s if it's really that windy, but this is not gonna blow over. Why is that important? It is incredibly frustrating to be going through whatever your range plan is for that day and have things blow apart, target stands blow over because they're poorly made and they're not stable. Eventually, it is absolutely worth it to get a good target stand set up, whatever it may be, so that you do not have things blow over, because that costs you time and it ends up being very, very frustrating. Another thing we want to have is a med kit, a legitimate med kit. Have some Band-Aids, I think they're great. If you get your finger cut, you throw a Band-Aid on there, good to go. But we're dealing with firearms. To that end, what if someone gets accidentally shot? We want to have something to take care of that, i.e. hemorrhage control. Tourniquet, compression, gauze, things along those lines. We want to have that stuff on hand. Hopefully we do not need it, but we want to have it, and of course, ideally, the training that goes with it. Other stuff you may want in your range bag: sunscreen if you're going to be at outdoor range, water, snacks, things like that. And if you're going to shoot a lot on cardboard, a nice thing to have is masking tape. So while you can mark up your targets, or your cardboard for that matter, with a Sharpie, eventually you have marks all over it. Masking tape's handy to go ahead and just patch up holes, and yeah, works pretty well. If something's missing, I think for a lot of people at range days is a plan. What are you looking to accomplish? Take that finite amount of ammunition, come up with a plan for it, and work towards just getting better as a shooter. By working through a set amount of ammunition with a set plan, you will definitely see progress, because it's not, hey, let's just go shoot. It's, hey, I want to go work on my trigger control. And being able to have something focused that you're working towards, keep you on track, and you will get the most out of it. Ammunition's expensive, can get really expensive. So get the most out of that money you're spending, not to mention the time you're spending out there. But be sure to join me as we continue this journey on firearms ownership, and As always, thank you for joining us at kitbadger.com. Look forward to seeing you next time.